are shut, so I guess we can begin. Now, welcome everyone to Geeks of Color Assemble, Minorities in Fandom. And right now, we're represented. So we're going to start off with some introductions. For those who don't know me, my name is Diana Pho. I'm also known as Ay-leen the Peacemaker in the steampunk community. I run the multicultural steampunk blog Beyond Victoriana. I'm also a blogger for Tor.com, and I work for Tor Books as my day job. So geekiness is my life. And I'm here today with a panel of wonderful, talented folk. And I'm so excited. This, honestly, is a panel that I've been waiting for all weekend long to happen. And I'm so glad it is right now. I'm going to start off with introductions, and as soon when I read yours, feel free to wave, say hi, what have you. But first, I'd like to introduce N.K. Jemisin. N.K. Jemisin is a New York area science fiction writer, and those 5 novels and numerous short stories have been nominated for 22 awards, including the Hugo, the World Fantasy Award, and winner of the Locus Award. She is currently editor of her latest novel, which she posts updates and her thoughts of the future of speculative fiction at nkjemisin.com. Next, we have Jeffrey L. Wilson. He is a journalist who has written gadget and gaming-related nerd copy for PC Magazine, Laptop Magazine, Parenting Magazine, WWE Magazine.
I'm plugging hard.
Oh yeah. And his own 2dx.com. He is a methead who believes that the original lacrosse is anime perfection.
Yeah.
And he's never read a comic book by John Byrne or Chris Claremont that he didn't like. Yes, he's old. Next we have Emmanuel Ortiz. He has been working as a journalist, graphic designer, videographer for 10 years at many different organizations. He has worked for the Wall Street Transcript, New York Tokyo, and Fuse Music Television. Today, Mr. Ortiz is the owner of Nerd Caliber, a website focusing on the many aspects of nerd lifestyle, from cosplay to gaming. Next is Muhammad Ahmad. He is the founder and editor of Islam in Science Fiction, which is the most comprehensive resource on the subjects of Muslim cultures and the characters in science fiction written by Muslims. He has also edited the first anthology dedicated to Muslims in science fiction, which is entitled A Mosque Among the Stars. Muhammad has a doctorate in computer science and is working as a data scientist at a predictive analytics startup. Next we have Muse and Lystrala. She is a musician, author, and political commentator. She is the lead singer of the symphonic metal band Crown of Melusine. Is that correct? Melusine. Sorry. And she is the author of The Clan of the Dark Mask horror series, and the author of Abed Black Woman blog on Tumblr. This is her first time at New York Comic Con. Next we have Ger Tysk. She started cosplaying in 2007 and has since turned a part-time hobby into a full-time business. She's a woodworker and prop maker, seamstress, author, and professional photographer, all supporting various aspects of the cosplay community both in the United States and abroad. Her photography and costumes have been featured on sites such as Kotaku, Polygon, Nerd Caliber, and Cosplay in America. Her latest project is a photo book entitled Breaking All the Rules, Cosplay and the Art of Self-Expression, a collection of photos and interviews from cosplayers across the United States, on sale in November. So thank you. And last, certainly not least, we have Jay Justice. She is a comic book collector, science fiction fantasy enthusiast, costumer, and cosplayer from New York City. On her Tumblr, and Justice for All, she is known for promoting equality, tolerance, and awareness among fans and convention goers. And as a person with a disability, Jay strives to demonstrate that the only thing it takes to reach your goals is the determination to get there. So now we have, now you know our wonderful, wonderful people right here, and we're going to start with what I call the geek debriefing. And in this section, since we have panelists that come from very diverse communities, I'm going to give them some time to speak about, what's geeky in their neighborhood. So I guess we can just move down the line. Jeffrey.
My name is Ger Wilson. I've been a gamer since the age of 5. And to put that in perspective, that was the year 1979. Over the course of those 30 plus years, gaming has evolved. We started with sprites, started facing blobs with two stems for legs, and those were people. But technology's advanced and we've got more realistic graphics. But our faces aren't very represented in video games at the moment. I've spoken to many developers on the reason why this exists. They say it's money. They say that we don't sell.
This is where you can move.
But 2012 proved them wrong. We had several people of color in video games. Lee from The Walking Dead. Anyone play Assassin's Creed Liberation on the Vita? Yeah. There was a surge of people of color last year, and they were good games. Some sold well, some didn't. But I think going forward, if we make our voices heard, because we are a big part of the gaming body in public. Go to any event. This is us. We are the consumer, and they have to start recognizing it.
Specifically talking about stuff in your neighborhood?
Well, just like, what have you noticed in the science fiction fantasy community, in the past year? And also bring your perspective, talk about what you feel is important, what you feel has been relevant, both, of course, as a writer, as a woman of color, however you want to take it.
Because I was going to actually mention the roommates, and there's a Dr. Who bar and many. So I guess my sort of creative neighborhood is writing in the fantasy community, and there isn't a whole lot that has been happening in the last few years, although that is beginning to change. I have encountered so many people who have come up to me and said, I don't read fantasy. I didn't know anybody like you actually wrote fantasy. I didn't know any of us could read it, or were allowed to read it. Yeah, well, no, the feeling that you weren't welcome is something that is fairly strong. But I'm seeing more and more movement on that, even as people start to see and identify with characters that they're seeing in Game of Thrones and things like that. And in some cases don't identify with those, and wonder why the characters in Game of Thrones are fitting certain stereotypes. I'm seeing a lot more questioning of those. And that's the part that I'm seeing as activity and movement in our communities, is people who used to just simply tolerate the strange imbalance and strange, unusually undiverse faux medieval Europes that you used to see in fantasy, because real medieval Europe was nothing like that. Real medieval Europe was a lot more diverse. I'm seeing people question those things and say, hey, this fantasy world that you created that's full of dragons and elves and stuff, where you think that black people are somehow harder to handle.
Hello. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome. I'm Muse, and as Diana mentioned, I'm a musician. Specifically, I'm a classical musician, which I don't know how many of you are familiar with classical music, but we're pretty underrepresented now. I'm trying to change that right now. But my secondary career is I'm a writer. I I write mostly horror and modern fantasy. And one of the things that I was thinking about while I was preparing for this panel is, why don't I write characters of color? I really had to think about that hard for a while. I don't know why I didn't do it. I think maybe I sort of have to figure out if it's not that I don't want to, it's, do I think it'll be accepted? Do I think people will, trash it? I have to figure that out for myself. Oh yeah, yeah, it's a big challenge for me as a writer right now. I actually live in Albany. Albany is... Raise your hands, represent. Albany is a pretty diverse community, but among all the places I've lived, despite the fact that it's very diverse, it's among the most diverse places I've lived, it's still very segregated. And the geek culture there is a very thriving, Magic the Gathering, comic reading community in Albany, but it's very separatist. So that's a bit of a problem. I like going to gaming shops, I like buying comics, I like buying Magic cards, and I like having people be nice to me when I go to do those things. So I could use some advice from my panelists maybe on how to...
That'd be a great topic of discussion among us. I agree.
Yeah, but overall, I am seeing some encouraging things. I'm seeing more acceptance, more embracing of people of color as being part of geek culture. There's sort of a smoother integration going on, I'm finding. But on the flip side of that, there's also, I have people react with extreme surprise or even disdain when I tell them I play Magic, I read comics, I play D&D, I write fiction. On both sides of the fence, both from people of color and people who are not, people of color. So I think my other challenge is we sort of have to question ourselves about our role in that, as well as, those who are not people of color. And that's pretty much all I got.
Hi, I'm Jane Justice. I'm a costumer, a cosplayer. I love comics since I was 4 years old. It's the first thing I ever read. Punisher War Journal. My mom was horrified. I like justice, what can I say? And one of the biggest things that I do with cosplay is promote literacy and give little kids comics to read and watch them get excited about it because they love the characters already. Now you can actually expand your vocabulary by saying Excelsior and reading about Spiderman. Really disturbed in our cosplay community is when people try to tell others that they can't cosplay a character because the character is not black or Hispanic or Asian. And it's like, okay, you wouldn't tell the little 5-year-old girl who's wondering that she can't look because she's black. Why are you telling me at what age we have to warn our children, you're not like the other kids. You can't do this. You can't be that. That's ridiculous. And I despise the term cosplay racism because it's not cosplay racism. It's racism in general. The fact that people want to just ignore that and say, well, just go be Vixen then, go be whatever black character there is, and I'm like, that Vixen is great, but I want to be every character. That doesn't mean you have to be limited by other people's hatred of your race. So I'm saying being silent doesn't help. Speak up, talk about what you want to do, share with people, promote your favorite thing. Don't let someone else's words keep you from being happy and enjoying yourself and loving comic books. That's all.
Hi, I'm Ger. I'm also a cosplayer. I've been cosplaying for 6-ish years, and in that time I've seen cosplay just explode on the con scene. I think 2007, 2008 was when it just started really, everybody wanted to be in a costume. And a lot of what Jay said, I completely agree with. I have a lot of people ask me, do I need to look like the character to cosplay this character? And basically, what does it matter? Costuming is about making a costume and putting yourself in the costume. As long as you're wearing a costume, as long as you like the costume, if you hate the costume, don't wear it. Because there's no point in that. I want to talk about a TV show that kind of really, really split the cosplay community that came out really recently. It's called Heroes of Cosplay. It's on Sci-Fi. It's a reality show. A lot of people hated it. A lot of people loved it. It was you couldn't talk to anybody who didn't have a really strong opinion about it, one way or the other. I have a lot of people who love it, a lot of people hate it. I don't have TV,
So I watched like the first 2 episodes on, I think it was like iTunes or something, and I couldn't get the rest of them because you had to pay, and I was like, screw that. I think there was a lot of discussion about race on that show because there was no black cosplayer on the show. Second, there were the most popular cosplayer on the show, Yaya Han, is Chinese. And there was a lot of talk about, well, Chinese people aren't really a minority. Which I found very offensive because I'm Chinese. But I mean, at what point do you stop being a minority? Because in cosplay there are lots of Chinese people, doesn't make us a minority. I found that really offensive. But the show offended a lot of people. A lot of people loved it. They were offended that other people were offended. I mean, it was interesting. So that's what's been going on in our neighborhood.
Hi, I'm Mohammed. I run IslamSci-Fi.com. So I'll start with a long, long time ago, a galaxy far, far away. And by that, I actually mean the United States 10, 15 years ago. So Muslims and Arabs in general, in comics and in sci-fi in general, they were usually represented as the quintessential other. So they represent what is not us. And over the last 10, 15 years, and especially certainly in the last 5 years, I would say things have certainly improved a lot. And part of that is that ordinary people like us, have spoken up. So for example, a few years ago, there was this famous incident at VisCon. A famous sci-fi author who I will not name made some really disparaging remarks about Muslims, something to the effect that they're out to kill us or they're just violent. And the thing is, the community spoke up, and she was one of the guests of honor, and her invitation to the event was removed by the organizers. So things have certainly improved. For example, now we have, I believe a couple of years ago, in an alternative timeline, Captain Britain was Pakistani British woman Faisal Sam. There's also Lee Batman of France, who's an Algerian Muslim. He's called the Night Runner. And I believe it was last year or maybe early this year. One of the alternate Green Lanterns was a Lebanese American Muslim guy from Detroit. So I think things have certainly changed.
Hello. My name is Emmanuel. I run North Caliber. I'm Puerto Rican. I grew up in the Bronx. Fortunately, not the good part of the Bronx.
They're all good parts, don't say that.
Yeah, but not the part I grew up in. But yeah, I grew up in the Bronx. It was challenging, a bit lonely at times. I was very misunderstood by people outside my family and people inside my family. I really didn't know what to make of me because I don't know, I didn't seem to fit some sort of box that they understood. For example, I like heavy metal. I don't know, I just like it, things like that. And then outside the family, I don't know, it's hard to explain. I guess growing up in an urban environment, there's so many messages of what you should be. You hear it and maybe in TV shows and so on. And I just had a hard time fitting with people, or they had trouble fitting with me. But I'm okay. Nowadays, some of the problems I'm dealing with more caliber is with new media. When I mean by new media, I mean internet personalities from mediocre films to Casino G, whether it be issues with misogyny or racism. The other day I was really upset. I don't know if you know Machinima out there, one of the really big things. They had this guy who's doing cosplay in San Diego, and he had these really ridiculous questions. The one that really I wanted to just go in there and destroy my monitor was he introduced this Asian cosplayer that was cosplaying Captain America, and he was like, why are you cosplaying Captain America? Isn't that weird? Do you think it's weird that an Asian person cosplaying Captain America? And I'm like, it's like, ah! I don't think I need to explain why that's But I could go on and stuff, but I'll just stop there.
Thank you, panelists, for sharing your reports. And I think what's really engaging is the fact that we all have certain questions that we're all struggling with. And I think this time would be a great time to discuss, what are some solutions? What are some things that we can find? And not just among ourselves up here, but with you guys. And what you guys can do after the panel ends, after your Comic-Con ends. And I would be really interested in engaging these sort of conversations. So for the next segment, I'm going to move on to some Q&A, and my first question has to do with representation. And things I've heard again and again, we weren't represented very much in the past, but things are changing. So we know things seem to be getting better, quote unquote. And I put that in quotes because my specific question is, do you think geek media effectively addresses the experience of a person of color at the same time expressing what it's like to be a geek? And the best case scenarios I'm thinking of, the Big Bang Theory. And I'm like, well, many geeks don't like Big Bang Theory for many reasons, because and we can discuss that further now. But that, or as a case of heroes of cosplay, where how are we represented by the media, it can be drastically different from our own experiences being geeks ourselves. So I just want you guys to play with that question.
Thank you. One of the problems with video game media itself is that we don't have any of us. I'm sorry. There's about maybe 5 people I can name of color who actually work within the video game media, and you see the message there occasionally, like we need more people like us in video games, but that's like a one-off you read every Christmas season or something as new games come out. One of the bigger issues, I guess, overall is that there's not enough of us developing video games. I know plenty of talented people who are software developers, but there's a roadblock getting into the industry. A variety of reasons, hard to get in regardless, but we have an extra level of challenge. Cliques, boys club, it makes it much harder, lifestyle. So we have to keep pushing. If you are a developer, if you want to be a games writer, do not quit. We need you.
I would like to be a games writer. Yeah, okay. I am a gamer, so I have a great interest in the same subject. And I will say I've seen a lot of early progress in that. Also, I'm an educator in my day job life, and I work at an engineering school, and I see engineers, young black engineers, young engineers of multiple races coming up and wanting more diversity and seeing some room for themselves within the field. There's a new group called Black Girls Code. Might want to donate to. They just had Kickstarter not too long ago, and I think it went fairly well. I saw that it got funded, but so there's movement in that area. In terms of things that can be done in other fields, and in terms of increasing representation, I mean, all of us are here and are doing that. I think probably all of us somewhere in our background has a story that we could probably tell about that moment when we realized that we were allowed to break into these fields. For me, it was reading my first Octavia Butler book. I had been speaking into science fiction and fantasy, clandestinely reading sci-fi fantasy books, sometimes wrapping them in my textbooks, so that I could pretend that I was not as geeky as I really was. And I would read these books, and then when I encountered her, I realized, wait, we can write this too. And that just sort of immediately just opened doors, knowing what was possible. There was someone on the last panel that I was on who discussed the fact that if you don't know what's possible, heroes in comic book media and in other media, heroes let you know what you can do. Tragic heroes let you know where you can fail, but you know, comedic heroes and other forms of heroes let you know how far you can go. And the fact that the heroes that we see who are able to achieve miracles are so rarely people who look like us lets us know that that's not something we're allowed to do until we see somebody do it. And I think that the next generation that is coming up, you know, these are all kids who've seen the president be a black man, and who've seen Green. You know, most of these kids grew up with a Green Lantern who was black, and most of these kids grew up with, you know, some possibilities that even we did not see. And I think that the more of those that we see, there will come a point where there is a critical mass reached. There will come a point when even Hollywood cannot help but notice, or the games industry, any of these industries that have been so resistant to depicting the reality, not just the fantasy, will look around and realize, oh wait, you know, this is the majority of our audience now. The half the people who are playing games really are women. We actually believe that now, despite statistics and math and stuff. I don't know. I'm about to start my third Mass Effect playthrough all the way through. And I love the fact that my chef is a woman and she's got short, natural, is blonde. But, you know, well, nothing wrong with bleaching. Okay. So, you know, I'm loving the fact that I can play this game and I can romance aliens. Anyway,
so kind of loosely following off these guys' points here, I also started video gaming when I was about 5. And I remember the day that my mother brought me home my first ever Nintendo that she won at like some Avon raffle. Oh, I'm excited, oh my god, I can play video games, this is so great. So, like, I'm mixed, my mother is Caucasian, my father was black, and I was never really raised with this idea that because you belong to one group or the other, or a multitude of groups, or what have you, that you can't do something. So I didn't really come across a lot of prejudice until, like, specifically in the gaming community, until I was much older. And by the time I got to that age, I started with confusion, and then I got angry, like really, really angry. And I spent a lot of years being angry. But what came home to me not terribly long ago, ashamed as I am to admit, I'm almost 32, anger doesn't help anything unless you're doing something about it. Like, I look out at this room, I see a ton of people of color in here cosplaying, coming here, buying comics. That's awesome. That's just incredibly awesome. I think that the key factor here is you can't be afraid of anything. You have to learn to open your mouth and speak up if you see something that's wrong with your community or wrong with the conventions you go to or anything. You can't be afraid to speak up. And I was afraid for a long time. And then I started doing panels like this, and I stopped being afraid. Still get a little angry sometimes. In fact, I get angry today, but you know, you cannot be afraid to speak up. And I see a room full of people that are not afraid to speak up, so I have to applaud you guys. Thank you. I would say that, yeah, sometimes my anger does drive me to speak or write. You know, my Uppity Black Woman blog is specifically about being a woman of color. And you guys should read it. It's funny, kind of serious, but funny. There's a lot of swearing, you've been warned. But that was kind of my way of saying, hey, this is who I am, and I'm going to share my experiences with you and see if you can relate to them, or even if you can incorporate them into your everyday life. That's my little digital blip. I don't cosplay as much as I would like to. I love these cosplayers, am I right? They're amazing. But a few years ago, I did start getting into cosplay, and I got a lot of funny looks. You know, I'm a plus-size African-American female. There's a lot of prejudice. Thank you. There's a lot of prejudice there in the cosplay community about, well, if you're not white, you shouldn't cosplay this character or that character. You should stick with characters that are in accordance with your own ethnic background. I have like 10 different bloodlines. How does that work for me? No, I like this character. I'm going to make that outfit. I'm going to do it. But like today I most of the day I was wearing around a Magic the Gathering cosplay from Ravnica. It was a Bullmage Shepherd, and I spent all last night working on this cosplay. And I show up to the con, I go to the ladies' room, I'm changing into my cosplay, and I'm just like, okay, first I have to face the rest of the ladies' room. So I go, I go out the stall, I do my makeup. All right, now I gotta face the rest of the con. And I didn't quite panic about it, but I was a little apprehensive about it because I didn't know what people's reaction were going to be. But then I saw all these other cosplayers of color, and I was immediately I was very reassured by that. So, take reassurance from one another. Know that you guys are awesome. Know that you have the power to create change. Don't be afraid to do it.
You don't have to go in order. You can feel free to jump in with any thoughts you have. I don't want to give that impression, so go on.
Why do I jump at all?
Yeah, we like going in order.
So outside of cosplay, I've been discriminated against since I was about 4 years old. I remember the first time someone was ever racist towards me, and my mom would always just tell me, you know what, that person is just full of hatred, or they want to put you in your place, they want to exert their supremacy, so you have to ignore that and do your job, do your school, do your life, do what you want and make yourself happy and just put it out of your mind. Just put their misery in their misery, leave that where it is. And when it came to costuming, I first did just start out with my favorite characters like Storm and and doing people that I knew and that were black already. And then I thought, oh, I kind of want to do this character, but what will people say? And I was like, wait a minute, why am I worried about that? So I just did it. And yeah, it's like if you're gonna let someone else's opinion of you alter what you're doing in any respect, then it's like you're saying, oh, I'll sit in the back of the bus, I don't care, this is whatever you want. No, don't forget that. And it's easy to say that, but for people who didn't have the same upbringing that I had, where my mom would not let someone get over me, you just have to try to think that you are a person. You deserve to be happy. You deserve to get what you want and not let other people take what stop you. As well as the fact people think that there are no black nerds, that we are some exotic hothouse flowers. Because I have people who email me saying that you're only one of the few black cosplayers there is, and I'm like, that is not true. Where do you live? They lived in Utah. They don't see a lot of black cosplayers on the blogs, on the on the big photo shoots, and on everything.
Cosplaying all black on Tumblr.
I'll tell them about that. No, it's no problem. The thing is that it's the same thing with every kind of media. You're not going to see people of color because we're not the westernized ideal. They don't promote us. We have to promote ourselves. We have to put ourselves out there and show that, yeah, even if you live in a small town where there's, you're the lone poppy seed on a plain bagel, we are out there, we support each other. It's just a thing as a black nerd, and there's plenty of us. It's just that we don't get the same support, but we're building ourselves. Cosplay Black is a really great site where you can see lots of different cosplayers of color. That was my high school life, okay? Yeah, it was rough.
Quick question for Rinko. How do you deal with people who do not accept you as a particular character?
Oh, I have a great story for that.
Living in this post Nick Fury, Samuel L. Jackson. There's still such anger.
Yes, there is.
How do you deal with that?
These people need Jesus, but I cosplay Wonder Woman. Specifically, I cosplay Nubia of Amazonia, the Wonder Woman from Earth 23 in Final Crisis number 7. She's strong with beautiful type 4A African textured hair, and it goes down to her butt. It's amazing. Oh, that's right. Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman is white. You're disrespectful. This is wrong. Everything you could possibly imagine. Yeah. And because they don't read comic books and they had no idea that it was actually a black person that was cosplaying. So that proves you can stick to the characters that are made deliberately for you, to represent you. Like, she was literally the Wonder Woman who complimented President Obama Superman. Like that. And even if you're doing everything you're supposed to do, filling your little place, you still get hatred. So don't even bother with it. Like, cosplay what you want. And to these people, I mean, I've heard it in person. Someone came to my face while I was working for a comic book store at a convention and said to me that, you know, Wonder Woman is not black. I'm like, well, this one is. You have any stories you want to share?
It's interesting. I don't actually have any stories I want to share, and that's partly because of being an Asian cosplayer, which is an interesting thing in itself. I think a lot of the reason why cosplay really kind of exploded when anime and manga became popular is that a lot of people suddenly saw other people who looked like them, and creators who looked like them. And as an Asian person growing up, I love Lord of the Rings, you know, I love Star Wars, but there are no Asian people in either of those things. It didn't really bother me. I was like, I'm going to be Darth Vader, I don't care. But as far as I am an anime fan, and that is because in anime I see people who make nerdy things and they look like me. And I think that's a really important thing as all these panelists are talking about. We need more people who are like us, who can make things for people who are like us. A good example is Avatar: The Last Airbender and Legend of Korra. And when anime got popular, it suddenly was like, oh, there is a market for this. We didn't know that, because obviously I didn't exist. And then the movie came along, and there was suddenly like, for some reason, the movie was like, didn't, I don't know. So, exactly. Two steps forward, one step back. I just think we have to think about the 2 steps forward and just keep going. You know, that's all I have to say about that.
So first, I have a comment about gaming. So I'm actually from the gaming industry, and there are actually a number of studies which have shown that. I can actually back this up with real published research paper. In general, women are better players than men. Okay. Now I'll give you a recent question that. Okay, so on to the original question that Diana had asked. So there's. So I would, to everything that all these wonderful panelists have said, to that I would add that there's also, within the minority cultures, there's also a socioeconomic factor that often gets left out. So for example, with respect to the Muslim community in the US, if you look at the larger media, not just amongst the nerds, the main focus is with respect to the immigrants. The narrative and the stories of African American Muslims almost always gets left out, and that's also true with respect to what we see amongst the geek cultures within this particular community. And that, again, as I said, has to do with the socioeconomic backgrounds of the people and their access to certain types of media. And I guess to the last point about what we can do, what we should do if say people are not accepting us, then, well, haters are going to hate. I guess to wrap things up, in Silicon Valley, there's a famous saying that do it, apologize, and ask permission later.
I guess if I were to choose what's my geek or nerd specialty, it would be comic books. Comic book was the first medium that I really enjoyed growing up. The libraries were really too dangerous to walk through when being that young. And there was a comic store though, right around the corner. So back in the days when it was like 50 cents each, my mom would give me like $5 and I'm like 10. These reads were on my dad enjoyed a lot. And I I remember Captain America was like my hero of choice. There's not too many. Growing up, I didn't see too many like good like male role models. So like Captain America was like awesome. It's this guy. And I could relate to him in a way because he was kind of an outsider. He didn't really fit in. He was a man out of his time, out of his place, and I could relate a little bit to that. Not trying to fit, but not trying to fit, but always wanting to do the right thing. But going back to Diana's question, when it comes to representation in comics, I feel like it's not enough. I'm hearing what's going on with the Avengers movie, and sort of trying to bring in Carol Danvers in, and Scarlet Witch, and I've heard talks about bringing in Falcon, but I wish instead it would bring in either like Captain Marvel or Black Panther instead.
Yeah.
I think Captain Marvel. I'm not talking about Carol Danvers. I don't. Yeah. It makes me so upset sometimes because when I think about it, because she was, if you read her like original stuff in the 80s and 90s, she was so powerful. She was amazing, and they empowered her. They took away her name, gave her full-time now? Full-time?
No, first it was full-time, Pulsar, Daystar, Lady of Light, and she had a regular name, now it's Spectrum.
That's my issue right now. That's what personally I really grinds my gears.
Yes.
I think one of the things we also have to do if we want to see things change, or if we want to see things change faster, is that we all have some, we also have to look out for each other. And by that I mean we have to look out for other groups that are being discriminated against. We can't just look out for our own. I get flack sometimes because the protagonist of my first novel was a biracial, not black woman. She was biracial white and something that would correspond to Indian if it was Earth. And I get flack sometimes from people who are like, well, if you don't write black characters, who will? And who are like, well, why are you bothering to write about them? You should let those people write about them. And there's a couple of things to unpack in that. There's a lot of, actually, not just a couple. There's a lot of things to unpack in that. I completely understand the idea that we do have to represent ourselves. We've got to do this because we can't rely on other people to do representation as well. We can, however, expect them to do some work. We can't rely on it, but we should demand it. And we should demand that from everyone. Everyone should be trying to write realistic expanses of the human race. Even if we're not writing about humans, we need to be writing about realistic diversity within any species, within any race. If I'm playing Mass Effect, and I know this, I'm sorry, I did. If I'm playing Mass Effect and I notice that almost all of the aliens that I see are represented as male, with the exception of friggin' sorry. If you notice that it's not until the third game that you see a female Turian. You almost never see a female Solarian. You didn't see females of other species until X time. I get flack sometimes for talking about feminism instead of talking about race. I get as if I'm able to divide the two chunks of myself. When I'm obviously talking about this intersectionality, and I think that a lot of you have heard that term and a lot of you understand it, the idea is that you cannot expect other people to stick up for you if you won't stick up for them. And you cannot expect to have a thriving and diverse career in which you'll get support from a lot of buyers if you're only ever writing about one particular thing. The plain fact of the matter is that in this discriminatory environment that we're writing in, white writers can get away with writing pretty much anything and be considered universal for doing so. We cannot. But there is a way that we can change that, and that is by trying to write as universally as white writers generally do not. So we welcome, we embrace, we diversify in the ways that we expect to see. And then hopefully other people will meet us halfway. That's all we can do.
Oh, I'm really glad you you brought up intersectionality, because that was actually my next question. Don't tell. But I would be very interested in responses from the rest of the panel concerning that, of course, we're not just defined by our race, we're also defined by our gender, by our religious beliefs, by our abilities, by our age, by our size, and in so many other ways. And I'd be really interested in hearing other thoughts from the rest of the panelists concerning how your other identities, intersect, conflict, mesh, what have you, of your participation in your fandom community.
I'm currently writing, I finished my first comic book script starring a black female character. And that was very deliberate because what happened to Monica LeBeau? Like her name's been chopped up and she's been rebooted so many times, I don't know who she is anymore. We need more. I don't see anyone like any of you people. No, I don't see you out there. And it's unfortunate because we consume so much because we love it and we're passionate about it. And I've been wanting to write comics since I was a kid. And I'm pitching this script and I'm running into all kinds of trouble. Why don't you tweak this? She'd be a little bit nicer if she got some blonde hair. So, it's a constant fight. That's true. But their blonde hair also comes with other things as well. It was a very deliberate act, and I just wanted to represent for people who aren't represented very well.
I got an anecdote that I've been meaning to share on this very topic. So I'm a music student at Schenectady County, upstate, way upstate, and there are a lot of geeks in that department, and so I've been yakking about this panel and how excited I am about it, and I remember a conversation, I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks ago, sitting around the student lounge with a bunch of other music majors, and I'm talking about this panel, and this one girl says, "You only care about social issues because you're black." Yeah, and I'm just like, fair point, no, absolutely. But the week before that, I mentioned that I was going to Comic-Con. I didn't even mention the panel, I'm going. What? Same girl, what? And I'm just like, yeah, why is that so surprising? Well, I don't know, and I thought about it later and I realized that it wasn't just because I'm a person of color, it's also because I'm a woman. If I had been, I love all my friends, I have tons of friends who are guys, but if I had been male, it might have been less surprising. Might have been even less surprising to her if I was a Caucasian male. Why is this so surprising? Why is it a big deal? So there's that. But as an African American and as a woman, I run into a lot of resistance, particularly with in relation to my creative work. I play shows occasionally in Albany with my band, Friend of Melusine, and I remember the first time I ever went into a club with my band to play, and the bouncer says to me, "Oh, you're gonna have to wait outside during sound check," and I'm just like, "I'm a singer?" Really? Yeah. I guess nobody really expects that, or at least very few people expect that an African-American female is going to be the lead singer for a metal band. There are tons of amazing female metal singers. I am huge fans of female metal singers. Very, very, very few female metal singers. What's that? Yes. Props, yes. But there are just not too many.
So just, we're doing a time check, we have 10 minutes left, so I want to make sure everyone has a chance to respond before I give up my final question.
Okay, so if you're looking for comic books with female black heroes in it, obviously Misty Knight, Fearless Defenders. If you want something else, The Movement by Gail Simone for DC Comics, got Virtue in it. She's amazing, black, female, gay superhero, she's awesome. Sorry, if anything else, left 10 minutes. Oh yes, Intersectionality. Yeah, that's one. I can't remember. Go 10 minutes.
greatest thing you can do as a cosplayer is to cosplay characters from a place of respect. Don't. There's been a debate going on, I guess, in the cosplay community about darkening your skin to cosplay a darker character, which I think is not respectful. A lot of people are like, well, I don't see what's wrong with it. People in Germany do it. Yeah, and cosplay with respect, and everything will fall into place. Don't do whatever the hell you want because you think you're it, and nobody will care what you do. Because people do care what you do, and people will see what you do and judge you for it. And I'm not saying that, care what people think necessarily, but again, intersectionality, be aware of other issues that are going on, not just in the cosplay community, but in your neighborhood.
I guess a quick comment. I guess one of the mistakes that I've seen that sometimes people of color can make is when describing their narrative in fiction is that even when they're telling their stories, it can come down to, say, if we're talking about Arabs or Indians or African people, then it can be the case that the story becomes like, say, Arabs and the Westerns, or the Africans and the Westerns, or the Chinese and the Western people. So there's not enough, there are not enough narratives where you have interaction between people from different communities, say, the Arabs and the Chinese, or the Indians and the Africans. So there needs to be this broadening of interactions, and let's focus on just buying into this unconscious buying into this Eurocentric narrative, even when we are telling our own stories.
Hope I answered the question correctly, but when it comes to the fan community, though, I get all types of different responses from the site. But the one that always sticks out to me is pretty amazing. Whenever I get a response from someone saying, especially with an article about race, when they say, I love doing this, but I wish I wasn't Puerto Rican. I wish I wasn't black. I hate it because no one seems to understand me in my own culture. And it's hard because sometimes I don't have a quick answer. Say that even right now, with the exception of that, just remember that you are all unique and you're all wonderful. I've interviewed so many people. They all have such wonder, and who you are, who you were born from. It makes up. That's part of that. Please don't hate yourself.
So for my final question is that I think we've all talked about things that we could do to help address the issues that we're talking about with today. But my final question is, if there is one concrete thing, like one physical thing, you can ask the audience to do to help, whether it's help support us, help with representation, help with being a geek in daily life, what is that one piece that you would offer them? And I'll start here. Who here has a New York Comic Con mobile app on their phone? Did you know you can vote for your panels on that phone?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So my one concrete thing is, if you enjoy this panel, if you want to see more panels like this at New York Comic Con, vote, give your feedback on your mobile app, write to New York Comic Con saying this is the best damn panel you've been to all weekend. Not only will this panel be able to come back, but more panels like it. And that's what I want. You guys.
Awesome.
Yes, thank you. New York Comic Con feedback session tomorrow. So if you can show up, please do. Yes, go on. Yes, you can start at the other end of this.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry, spot. I'm trying to spot Daniel.
One thing you said is so. I would say before you take your time to look at this issue more thoroughly, know thyself. Know thyself because we live in a society where the media posts all these types of different stereotypes and negative messages. Know that stuff. There may be stuff subconsciously that you may have racial issues about it. You know, everyone was upset about what happened with Trayvon Martin, but if you're walking down the street and you see a black guy walking down in the middle of the night, you know, and the first thought you think is like, oh crap, what do I do? You know, it's something you may want to examine more about yourself, and don't be upset about it. I mean, we're all imperfect, and we all have a need to grow. So that would be my thing to think about. Just know that stuff.
I guess my main recommendation would be that just reading about and talking to people who belong to other minorities, and then just so that you do not carry over. I guess as Emmanuel mentioned, that those stereotypes that the media may have fed you about, that say African Americans are like that, or Muslims are like that, or Chinese people are supposed to be like that. Because studies over and over have shown that once you have interaction with people and you know them of a certain group and know them as people, it's only then that you can actually develop a real positive image about different communities.
I guess my advice is don't be scared. I spent a long time in my life being scared of doing things because my parents said, as an Asian kid, I can't do these things. As an Asian person, you're not supposed to join the military. As an Asian person, you're not supposed to learn how to work with power tools. You're supposed to, you know, like my parents are, you know, and a lot of people's parents have these ideas about what you or, you know, your neighbors or your friends have ideas about what you as insert in the blank here are supposed to do. Think, again, know thyself. Don't be afraid to do what you think you can do.
If you're a person of color, do not let society's perception of what your race is supposed to be define your path in life. If you are not a person of color, if you're the majority with privilege, please don't insert that privilege over people who don't have it. Don't let your perceptions define how you treat them as a person. That's it.
My advice is sort of twofold. Following up Mohammed's remark about, you know, socioeconomic factors, educate yourselves. Do not be afraid to ask questions. Ask a lot of questions of each other, of people. I hate to say like us, this seems a little, you know, self-advertising, but ask questions. Don't be afraid to speak to each other, for each other, against somebody if the occasion calls for it. Do not be afraid, ever, ever, ever.
I will just say, get angry. It is actually really okay to get angry. I am one of the most mild-mannered, silly people that I know, and yet anger is one of the things that has driven my entire writing career. Anger is why I tried to get published. Anger is why I started writing. Anger is why I decided, God damn it, I'm going to be a writer. Because people told me I could. People told me that's not something people like you are supposed to do. Or if you do, there's only one constrained, simple way that you're supposed to do it. I write what I fucking serve. I'm sorry. I write what I feel.
I guess my takeaway is that if you're a creator and making a character or using whatever is centered on people of color, try to hold onto your vision. Technology has opened many doors to allow you to get your work out to the public in new ways. You have comicsology submits, you have online distribution for your music. You don't have to go through traditional routes to get things done. So make it happen.
First, thank you so much for coming. Give yourselves a round of applause. You guys, let's smile for the camera. Anyone more on the side?
Don't fall.